Unicef says about 70% of urban residents in Sub-Saharan Africa live in informal settlements. The organization says the region is the worst performing when it comes to urban housing. It says this has a negative impact on children's development, health and psychology. Let's go live now via Skype to Farai Tunuma from Unicef to talk to us about these issues. So this whole issue of urbanization, Farai, is either an opportunity or perhaps a threat to human development, right? Depending on what it is that you do by way of preparation for that urbanization. Africa rapidly urbanizing. You are flagging issues about Sub-Saharan Africa's readiness to accommodate a youthful and children-centered community.
Yes, Tulasizwe. So 4.1% of the annual growth rate of the continent is actually in terms of urbanization. And when you look at global trends, globally, everywhere else, everyone is trending at around 2%. So certainly we have massive urbanization happening within our region. We project that about 44%. We currently have urbanization at 44%, and we expect this to rise up to 55% by the year 2050. And of these urban residents, about 70% of these residents will live within informal settlements or slums unless we correct these disparities in terms of our planning and our investment in urban centers that are rapidly growing, but also ensuring that we target the children and the youth who are our biggest group of population within the continent.
So, I mean, when we break down what urbanization entails, it entails the demand for housing, for example, if we stick to housing, for example. Yet you tell us that in as much as Sub-Saharan Africa is rapidly urbanizing, it is the worst performing in the world in as far as housing.
So in terms of housing, about 70% of our dwellers live within informal settlements or slums, and that's an indication of the living conditions that they have. We also have about 33% of our population having access to improved sanitation, for instance. So that already shows you that the conditions are not right, and unless we invest in these areas, we will have challenges with our very rapid urbanization.
And linked to that, of course, are challenges and problems around water, sanitation and health. And you say as UNICEF that this has a particular impact on children and the youth. What is that?
So as the region is rapidly urbanizing, children are actually going to move from the urban areas, from the rural areas into the urban areas. But that doesn't necessarily guarantee a better quality of life for them. Our analysis shows that in some big cities, for example, in Nairobi, for instance, if a child were to live in Nairobi versus a child living in a much smaller secondary town with a population of about 300,000, they would be up to 2 times more likely not to access these basic services such as water, sanitation, health and education. And in cities like Lusaka and the Zambian cities, for instance, this can even reach up to 3 times. So without further investment in the secondary cities, it is going to become very difficult for our children to have a better life.
All right, thank you so much for that. That is Farai Tunuma from UNICEF talking to us about a new study that's got fascinating insights about the urbanization of Africa and its impact on children and the youth. It actually draws parallels, including major cities as well as what are known as secondary towns of 300,000 people or less, and basically compares the welfare of children and the projected welfare of children going into the future in those urban settings.